But yeah, this evening, so for these episodes, what I do is we come up with a topic, we come up with some resources to go with that, from CIG, information that they've put out, and then we just come up with some questions to surround those topics to sort of guide the conversation. And so we've been talking about this sort of stuff, and so we're going to start off this episode talking about the resource management side, as long as it's not private tickles. Yeah.
Before we get into it, I gotta ask.
That's off camera.
I gotta ask. How did you come up with a handle? Like, what's the story behind the handle?
It's nothing great, man. Honestly, it was my first WoW character's name in like 2006. I just wanted to think. I was like, just wanted a funny name. It was long before I was in the military.
Okay.
And yeah, I just thought that sounded goofy. So that's been my handle on everything ever since.
That's awesome. Okay. I had to ask.
It had nothing to do with the military in any way, shape, or form.
When Tree first briefed me on he's like, yeah, we're going to bring on this guy, Sgt Tickles. He's a former vet. I was like, man, with a name like Sgt Tickles, I like him already. Can't wait.
Oh, and before I continue, just because sometimes people always ask, what are you drinking? I always, for a stream or a podcast, I try to drink a space-themed beer, and this is Cosmic Creatures IPA from Deschutes Brewery in Oregon. I actually found it while I was camping in Oregon. Was that last week or the week before? With my family, and it's quite good, and it's got a flying saucer abducting a mountain biker on it. So cool. So yeah, we're gonna be talking. First, we're going to be talking about resource management. God, I hate why can't Google have everything with the dark mode? I just pulled up the notes page and it's just absolutely glaring.
Oh, man. Yeah, I wish the same thing for Google Workspaces. That's...
So if you're following along in chat, I'll put the links in chat here in a second, just so you can see what sort of things we're talking about. You've probably seen them, maybe you haven't, but just so you can be aware. And these links, I'll put them in the description in the show notes if you're watching on YouTube later. But yeah, talking about resource management, we've got an old engineering document from like 2017 that just talks about all the components and their grades, their classifications. There's even an image that shows all the work in progress of all the subcomponents and how they're broken up into groups and subgroups. And then more recently, we've got Inside Star Citizen from fall 2020, which is where we saw that Aegis Hammerhead model with the all the resource management stuff with the relays and the power supply, fuel tank, etc.
Is that old?
Yeah, 2020. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. But then 2 years later,
it's only a few years.
The same time. Yeah. 2 years later, same time, Power Play, Journey to 4.0, CitizenCon 2952, and then this spring, Design Brief Engineer, Journey to 4.0, Thursday ISC thing. So those are the sort of rough resources. There's more information if you want to check out the Pathfinders podcast where we go in depth into this stuff. But that's basically what we're going to be, kind of referring back to, as well as just our in-game experiences. So first question of the evening, we're going to start off with Sgt Tickles, and this is sort of off the cuff and sort of.
Let's start with Tickles.
Yeah, we're going to put them on the spot.
Let's go.
Yeah, we're several minutes in, so now we can say, fucking send it, man.
Yeah.
So what are your general thoughts in regards to ships and particularly the ships that you like to use about what CIG has told us about the resource management system?
I tell you what I'm most looking forward to with it, 100%, is just more multiplayer gameplay. Relying on someone else in your ship and knowing that, you want to fly with people who know what they're doing and not just have your buddy who's a shithead in the back who's not going to help you out if, you got a subcomponent that needs changing or something mid-flight, mid-battle. I've been looking forward to multiplayer gameplay in Star Citizen forever. in more than just like, hey, let's go raid this bunker together. But really having engineering gameplay and all the resource management just means what I've been waiting for is coming to fruition. So it's more of an overall than a individual thing.
No, that's a good answer, because like we've had turrets and that's about it for how long now? And even as long as you've got more than a one-person ship, there's gonna be room for doing that sort of stuff and optimizing. And that's one thing that they've emphasized in the videos here, that this is really what this is meant for, and it's gonna really open up the doors for a lot of that sort of stuff. And it's not mandatory. It's not one of these things where if you don't have somebody doing engineering on your ship, you're up a creek without a paddle. But it's just going to allow for a lot of that, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And damn nets.
There was like one small patch for a very short time that like the co-pilot could actually move like a shield slider around or stuff like that. And that was about it. That was it for multiplayer gameplay as far as two people in the ship at the same time doing something other than manning a turret.
Yeah.
So,
and even if we had the power triangle, that's those things working on a regular basis, that'd be better than nothing. But it's as far from my experience, it's been very hit or miss whether it works from patch to patch and whether it works from ship to ship. Certain things I'm good at multitasking, and certain things I'm not. If you want me to try and do my own power management in my ship, oh gosh, and moving my shields around or anything, that's it's going to go badly for me. And I fly with sticks now, and I have all I would have to do is move the little hat thing around, and I would still forget to do it. So,
what sticks you got?
Oh, I just have the T16,000s. They're just decent introductory sticks. Nothing fancy. Allows me to get used to it. Flying that way. But I just get when you're flying and you have you have other ships around you, or you're near asteroids or a station, or for me, like I fly in Atmo a lot. Because I'm a wannabe dropship pilot. There's terrain. Caution, terrain. Caution, terrain.
Don't get me started. I want to rat out so bad.
Yeah, I hear that in my head when I'm getting too close to the ground because I can't help it.
When you crash, retard.
Yeah.
Retard. Yeah. That's an aviation joke. Don't.
Yeah.
I do a lot of DCS.
But yeah, you get fixated on what's in front of you, what's around you, looking around. And so it's really hard to remember to look down at your MFDs, which are, even with Toby, being able to easily look down at my MFDs, you forget about it, and because
Here's a system I'd like. Your average minivan nowadays has friggin' like a 4K reverse camera. Give me an undershot camera. Give me a landing camera.
Well,
I'd gladly take one of my MFD slots where I can see where the hell I'm landing.
Yeah, I have. If
every time you drop the landing gear, it just automatically shifted an MFD to the underside camera. Yeah,
that's a programmable keybind that I have on my sticks, but it's for rear view, so I can see that I'm getting shot on my ass. Yes, I'm aware. I don't need the camera to see that. How come there isn't a dedicated camera angle? Yeah, that you could plug to your keybind on your sticks. Why do I need a rear view camera it blinks at me when I'm getting shot on the ass? I don't need to look back there. Yeah. They're not in front of me, so they must be back there. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, no, good stuff. Night Cobb, same question. What are your general thoughts in regards to ships about what CIG has told us about resource management? Oh, night vision.
Okay. First, I got a question for the sergeant over there. What you drinking?
Oh, yeah.
Well, I'm starting off with a wheat beer from a local brewery. Probably can't see the can. It's green.
That's actually really cool.
And then, no, it's not it's a wheat blonde. So
nice.
And then later on, I'll be switching
I like
over
blondes.
to. woodchuck.
I like beer too, but I mean, like, you know, that's
cheers, clink.
I'm more of a brunette guy, but yeah, I like blondes in my beer.
Fair. All right, and then all right. Now we got that out of the way. I was curious. I saw the can a couple times, and I was like, "Oh, I want to know what he's drinking."
I only had one left.
Yeah, sorry. I'm drinking water tonight. I would normally be drinking a beer with you guys, but I said I had too much in Greece. I was drinking a bunch of Lira over there.
Part of the crew,
It's a local Cretan beer from the island of Crete. Anyway,
Cretan, as in people from Crete, not like, you know, little Cretans.
Little Cretans.
yeah, you little cretins.
Yeah, tiny people beer.
No.
They're just 6-ounce cans.
Little goblins.
Yeah, goblin beer. That's what I was drinking. All right, my feelings on resource management. Well, I hate to say it, but I mean, Sgt Tickles really stole a lot of my thunder there. Because he basically described, you know, the ideal multi-crew experience, and you know what I live with on the submarine. You know, it's all about training people to be exactly what you need them to be in the right moment, especially in casualties. You know, when the shit is hitting the fan, and like teamwork saves the day. You know, a good casualty drill response on the sub is like a triple play in baseball to me. You know, where you fully recovered the ship and you're back in the fight, and you know, I look forward to that as part of that gameplay. And I really want to. I think what excites me the most about resource management and the depth that they're going is the idea that you can be an expert engineer, and maybe not even just an expert engineer of all ships, but maybe you're master of a few, so that you're marketable for multi-crew. You know, the idea is that it's like, you know, you start putting yourself out there like, look, guys, I'm really good at maintaining hammerheads, Perseus. Like if it's RSI and it's a sub-capital or something to that effect, you know, like I'm your guy. Like that's my expert system and stuff like that. And then people start fighting over that. Like, well, I want you to engineer for my ship. Look, guys, I only got so much time. You know, it's going to require a contract. I require X amount of AUEC per hour while I'm serving on board your ship. And, you know, you're paying me that, and I'm worth the money. And I love that idea for, like, engineering-style gameplay. You know, where they've got that mastery, and therefore you can count on them.
Right, and I think that kind of ties in with their, like, rating systems where you can rate people.
Ooh,
you know, if you got a bunch of good ratings and people leave notes about your, I don't know how it's going to work in the long run, right? But people leave notes about, hey, he did this for me, and, like, bullet point, you know, basically EPR style or whatever.
Space Angie's List, yeah.
Yeah, no
Part of the crew, part of the ship.
Yeah, that'd be, I think those would
Part of the crew,
really go well
part
together
of the crew, part of the
with
ship.
what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, hopefully that's so the reputation system is thankfully under the purview of the mission feature team now. And they've been going gangbusters with the new modular mission system. So hopefully along, you know, coinciding with that, they're also getting some work done on that. So that way we can have a little bit more interaction. I don't think we're going to see resource management in game until, you know, maybe a tidbit or, you know, end of the year, but probably most likely first half of next year. You know, I think it's going to be a big theme for next year will be resource management coming in game, just because they've got so much more on their plate. But I hope that will give the mission feature team time to get the reputation system up to speed, so that way we do have the ability to rate people, and that way we can look up people based off of their because if you're doing those, you know, eventually there are going to be jobs where, you know, somebody performs a job, does a function, and then they can get rated for that based off how well they perform it. Whether it's, you know, just doing engineering style jobs in game, and you're like, oh yeah, I've got this, you know, I've got just like how they have for bounty hunting now. You're, you know, you go. I always forget how the HRTs and all the ranking system works, but you do those to get a certain ranking level of bounty hunter within, you know, North Rock or whoever else to get those missions. Well, you'll have that for, you know, doing maintenance things, and you're like, oh, okay, you can see that this person has put in the time and effort to do all these maintenance missions and get all this practice. And then hopefully, we'll be able to hire them and then, have reputation with somebody and be like, oh, okay, that person is a reputable person, and they rated them as a 5-star engineer. They've got 30 5-star engineering ratings or something like that. Who knows how they'll make it work? But I think that'd be really great to be able to advertise that.
Yeah, and they're going to have to think about how they do it too. You're only going to be able to rate someone that you hired for a particular job, or is anyone going to be able to rate anyone at any time? Because I see that going both ways, good and bad. Of be able to buy ratings, right, as it were, and or a large org doesn't like somebody or something, or like a rival org, so they get all of their members to downrate all of their members. It's like, it's got to be a rating system you're able to trust, not just random.
Yeah, there's gonna be a lot of edge cases. I don't envy them that, but it is definitely something that we need, because obviously you can't have the only way you're earning reputation is with NPC orgs, and that's a vital part of your resume as an engineer, or doing this sort of gameplay, is being able to, not only talk the talk, but walk the walk and have somebody else back you up on it. Good answers. No, good stuff. I like that. We will, let's see, second question. We'll start off with Nightcop because you got second on the first one. Given your experience surrounding real life ship systems, what would you do anything different when it comes to resource management, or what else would you like to see in terms of our interactions with the systems? Not necessarily the gamification of it with engineering gameplay, but what system, how they're building out the resource system.
I think my big thing, and I think this is lost. I know you put the links in there and stuff like that. One of the key things is that video from, I think that was 2020. That was the oldest video, or was that 2017? No, it was 2020.
Oh, the first one with the hammerhead?
Yeah.
Yeah,
where they basically started that up. One of the key parts of that presentation is the idea of fuel equals power. And, everybody kind of focuses on the power plant. And it's so, the thing I think about it right now is, hydrogen fuel right now is pretty much just determined by your thrusters and almost seemingly only affected by your boost, is what you get, to start sucking down hydrogen fuel. What I want to see is the meaningful, side effect of, okay, what happens when all of the other things start sucking off that same power plant, like your lights, your weapons. When you refill the capacitor bank on, your size 4 repeaters, that energy's got to come from somewhere. Capacitors require a source power to fill up the capacitor, and then when you drain the capacitor, source power refills it again. That's all got to cost fuel. And, I think that's going to, and throw that in with efficiency, and that takes that system to a whole new level. So it looks like they've thought about that. At least they did 3 years ago. And, they talked about the resource management gameplay, and I think that's where they're headed first, is that idea of, fuel for power consumption for all things. By laying the pipe work of, hey, your laser capacitors are connected to your power plant on this ship, because you don't need anything physical necessarily. But I think they do want physical things where you can sever those connections. I think that's part of that whole maelstrom system, where it's physicalized damage. So right now, I think we get the gamified, just, draws off your power plant one way or the other. And your power plant draws off your fuel tank. Because that's, related to what I do, the submarine, right? We have the nuclear reactor, and ultimately everything that we do off that, because it's self-contained, right, costs fuel. It just costs fuel in the form of, enriched uranium. But there's a finite amount of it. And going fast, using a lot of power for propulsion, while at the same time using power for electricity, and every load on the electrical distribution system, that eats fuel. Slowly, granted, with the nature of nuclear power, but still, it's something that has to be managed. It's something that has to be accounted for. It's something that you have to have in the back of your mind, because I think when you bring in that power distribution and, okay, you start making decisions not just based on, I just need military grade A components. Well, what if military grade A components are inefficient and a resource hog in the name of performance? Maybe your shields recharge faster, but maybe they're not efficiently doing that and they're eating your fuel. Then you start making a lot more variable-based decisions. And I think that's the biggest part about resource management that I think is going to add to the game is it's going to add the decision points to components, I hope. And how we make those decisions, what those variables are for those decisions. And I want that for meaningful gameplay and ship outfitting more than most things for resource management.
Well,
yeah,
I rambled for a
I
minute.
almost hope that it does do that, because then it would make the whole air-to-air refueling system useful. Right now, there's zero purpose to have a refueler, because it's so much quicker just to bop down to a landing pad on a moon or a planet, refuel, and go along your merry way. Now this is Stanton where it's populated. Pyro could be a different game, right? But
and
that's
the thing about quantum fuel for the most part. My curiosity is the hydrogen fuel game. Quantum's kind of like set in stone, right? Because it's essentially a separate fuel source, unless they intend to tie it into like the power plant. So you're really looking at that already as like do I have enough fuel for the distance while I'm jumping? And I think Pyro is going to win in that category. But I'm with you. Just to be clear, what I'm hoping for is it starts making meaningful choices about the hydrogen fuel. Assuming they keep 100%. That as like,
I agree with you, because I'm just thinking of like how the helicopter worked. It's just everything's drawn off JP8 or whatever jet fuel you're using. The main engines are burning it and producing physical power to via the shafts, and then that spins everything else. Spins your hydraulics, that spins your generators, that spins obviously the big rotating thing up top. I don't want to be too technical here, aka the rotor head. But it literally everything is from the engines burning fuel, so that does matter when you're engineering stuff and how much stuff you add to it, right? Because if you have other systems that are requiring hydraulic power that's putting a higher strain on your hydraulic generators, or the things that pump the fluid, I guess it'd be pumps. Sorry, I wasn't an engineer. I made things go boom.
No, you got it. You nailed it.
But that puts more strain there, which makes your engines either A, have to work harder, or which obviously takes more fuel, or B, you sacrifice the efficiency of your hydraulics. So I like the idea that maybe military grade A components might suck fuel faster, but they're a lot better. And if fuel's not a problem for you, if you're just going to go do a mission and then refuel, it's not a big deal. But if you plan on being out and about for a while, you might think, well, maybe I want some whatever, the economy class that's going to last a while, but you're not needing the performance. So I like the idea if they're going that route.
Yeah. Well, you showed the design documents and stuff like that. You got them in the links. If you guys haven't looked at them, I highly recommend it. Because I was unaware of the subcomponent design document that you showed off there.
Well, so what they did is they when that document, the engineering document came out, they had literally just done a sprint, an art sprint on making the subcomponents. So they have physically made them, and they have the subcomponents have serialized variables. They're ready to go. They just don't have the gameplay yet, because obviously they thought back then that, this will be in soon. So we should probably have no, but
sorry,
they got started on making these subcomponents for different manufacturers and different types, and so they have thought about it. They've done some of the work. They've made all those, and they've also made them with a spent or damaged state. Like, hey, you've used it up. It's no good anymore. You need to replace it. So it's pretty cool when I was doing the research for Pathfinders, that Pathfinders episode on that. But it was, A, they look cool, but B, more importantly, these are just what they said in like around the verse episode back then, is these are some of the what did I call them? groups and subgroups for the modifiers that they're working on. And it's like, well, there's 3 subgroups, and then there's like 4 or 5, or 3 groups and then 4 or 5 subgroups with multiple manufacturers for each one. It's like, that's a lot of variety just for,
I think they'll dial that down though.
Oh yeah, they'll refine it and everything. It's just, you know, it's interesting that this is what they're thinking about, and we already have a good amount of variety with components. So there's the and we're going to get more into that. But what Sergeant Tick, what both of you guys were just saying about fuel consumption and about, you know, how these things work in real life, and there's obviously a good deal of influence on, you know, or parallelism from real life to what CIG is doing and how this works. It's gamified and it's simplified, but it makes sense. You know, if you know how a car works, you're like, oh, okay, this makes sense. If you know how an aircraft flies and how they're powered, or, you know, for you, a nuclear reactor and everything that goes with, you know, there is a logical flow to it that a lot of people might not have thought about. And like what you guys, both of your guys' answers, that's like, yes, that is exactly what I wanted to hear for this episode. That's why I wanted to bring you guys on, because people don't think about this stuff ahead of time. They might not be aware of the resource management system and how these things are going to work, and they might not relate it back to these sorts of things. And you don't think about that in your car all that much, unless you're like, I went on my road trip to Oregon 2 weeks ago for camping, you know, and I was thinking, you know, you're watching your fuel consumption, you know, because you got a long drive and you're like, I don't want to be, you know, flying down the, you know, I'm not in a hurry. I don't want to be flying down the highway at 90 miles an hour. Yeah.
You literally are burning your money.
Yeah,
literally.
You're burning money. Mm-hmm.
You're catching your money on fire so that you can move.
Yeah. And
that's wild.
If you don't drive much, if you just drive a little bit around town, you know, you probably don't think about it all that much. But, you know, if that's your job, if that's been, you know, your profession, you know, if these things, your concerns are very relevant to, you know, to a certain point, even your survival, you know, it makes a big difference where you place a priority on it. And, you know, we're going to have to make those decisions in game, you know, of whether you survive that encounter, whether you get stranded out in the middle of nowhere and have to call for help, whether you burn through a component far faster than you had planned, and now you're limping along, or you have to replace it, and it's going to cost you a boatload of money because you bought the expensive, you know, grade A military this or that. So yeah, those are really good points. Good stuff.
And another thing that they really need to think about with balancing this is realism versus fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's the whole thing with Star Citizen as well. I personally would like a little bit more realistic startup sequence instead of just getting in and pressing Y and peacing out. However, I get that not everyone might want that experience. So getting in, pressing Y and piecing out should be an option, but it should also be, I don't know if there's some reward for it, you know, or something. Like, I don't know, like if you go through the startup sequence, your ship's 5% more efficient. I don't know, right? But
yeah, maybe it's just a matter of saving a little bit of fuel at the startup.
Yeah,
I mean, that would do it for me. Or if you do a manual startup, maybe it's not just fuel, but you have the chance to save on some wear and tear on your components. So maybe you got less, you know, a smaller percentage of malfunction.
Yeah, I like the idea of that too. Something along the lines to make it worthwhile going through. And I'm not saying like a 30 fucking step checklist, but maybe
you're not looking for DCS
7 or something. I'm not looking for DCS, but somewhere in between DCS and getting in and pressing Y and fucking off. Like somewhere in between. Also, I'd like, and then this comes from aviation background. I know I'm getting a little bit off topic, but
very good.
I would love a little bit more realistic ATC instead of pressing one button again or calling in, and it's just a canned thing. Calling in for, I'd love to be able to call for a specific landing pad. You know what I mean? I'd love to be able to, I don't know, something. Again, something more than one button, less than, again, DCS.
So Aether Drift asks in chat, don't they already do something like that with Flight Ready? You enter every system in. So you can turn on your engine, you know, the various systems. I think what we're talking about is more your startup sequence to get your different systems going. Like, your
right. Turn on turn on all your systems. Turn on your shields. Turn on your in the right order to for less fuel consumption or whatever it ends up
your
being.
fuel pump. Those sorts of. It doesn't need to, and Sgt Tickles and I are probably have used the very same startup checklist for Blackhawks, and I'm sure that there is a insane checklist for starting up a nuclear reactor or something, and it doesn't need to be complicated. But just having this is a short sequence of events to get get these systems going in order to I do this, and this over 10-15 seconds to start up my power plant. Once that's going, then I do this, and this to start up my coolers and get the coolant flowing, and then this, and this to get power routing. It takes you 1, maybe 2 minutes if you're good at it, and it gets you a little benefit.
There is already like 3 with things you could turn on, but that's 3 engines, shields. Okay, and you
press button, it comes
off in 10 seconds. You're turning on a spaceship, for Christ's sake.
Yeah.
We're not getting in our fucking Cessna, which even has a longer startup, but still.
Yeah. And whether it's efficiency or I was going to say whether it's something efficiency wise as far as fuel consumption, or if you do it this way, you're not I like the if you're going through the startup process, it's not a hard cold start. It's a soft cold start. It's
maybe your components
wear and tear.
Don't wear out as fast or something.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think quick head thought. You brought up a point. You can actually go to the power menu and select power to the individual components of your ship, to like the coolers, to all those things. So it's not even just like, hey, power to engines, power to weapons, power to shields, and you're good. You can actually literally do your own startup sequence. And then you're talking about what, 8-10 things. But it would make sense.
A terrible way to do it, because you got to zoom in on that little ass menu, scroll in and out, and then that's zooming you in and out. It's not like it's an enjoyable sequence.
Don't get me wrong, UI notwithstanding, what I think would make sense though is kind of like what Tree talking about. Like in my head, Roy did my job. First thing I'd want is coolers, and I'd probably start those on the battery, because power without a heat sink is not good. And what happens is, and I think what would make sense immediately for consequences, power plant without a heat sink, that's going to put some wear and tear in the form of heat damage on that component. And then, so then it's like, all right, so coolers, all right, now that coolers are on, power plant on. Okay, now that the power plant's up, I can come off the battery. And that's kind of like what you guys deal with too in the aircraft business, right? It's all about, all right, battery, APU start. After the APU start, okay, now it's time to, turn on one of the engines. The rotor starts to spin, stuff like that. You light that one engine off. One of the generators comes online. Technically, you don't need, well, I don't know. It depends on the aircraft. Sometimes you need both engines before you turn off APU power in the battery. But you get the idea, right? You're at that point now, that engine's up and it's spinning hydraulics and all that kind of stuff.
God, I'm having flashbacks, man.
Yeah, sorry.
And you can do the same thing in inverse for your shutdown, and so that way, if you're trying to get down on the ground and shut down quickly for whatever reason, there's danger in the area, you need to get out of the ship. Okay, you press the button, it'll all just hard shut down. But if you're landing in a hangar, then you've got the time. You can save yourself the wear and tear, because that's why I like the wear and tear aspect of it, because you can you can do the same on the front and the back end. And
it kind of already exists. If you shut down power mid-quantum, you get a wonky ship. You get unstable power. You get all sorts of stuff. And it gets worse and worse the more you do it. Yeah. And that could be easily applied to just the normal, power off, power on sequence.
Well, True, we mentioned this in the chat, and I did remember them talking about this in one of the most recent videos where they talked about hey, they're going to have like 3 phases of equipment. There's like the boot up cycle, and then there's going to be, I can't remember what the in-between one was, but there was like a, almost ready for load. And then there's like, okay, up and running, operational. But you got initial boot up, and then something in between, essentially an intermediary phase while it's in the charging process or whatever. But that would be like the indicator that I would imagine you'd want to. It's like, hey, don't, so if I go back to my example, it's like, okay, you start up the coolers, and then I'm waiting in the appropriate phase of the boot up sequence for the coolers to be ready for load, or maybe I can do, the power plant and the intermediary load. But again, that might be a little more wear and tear on the component. I'm more likely to suffer a malfunction down the road, something along those lines. So, again, man, I look forward to the day where I'm paying an engineer, with my Perseus to be like, all right, man, start the girl up, get her ready. We'll be out of the bar in 5 minutes. I want that ship prepped and ready to dust off.
Hey, 8 hours
with
bottle
good
of throttle,
components.
baby. Hold on.
Yeah. With with everything ready to go, and I don't want to hear about wear on the components and stuff like that. 2 weeks into our extended gaming session in Pyro.
Yeah, you're the engineer, you're the manager. Maybe you have one engineer and they're doing all three duties, but as the manager, you're trying to save on those components and not put on the wear and tear. So yeah, it behooves you to get those things going, and to do those things right. That's.
Would it make sense that the larger the ship, the larger the component, the longer time boot up will be? Mm-hmm. Maybe your coolers on your Gladius need 10 seconds before they're able to take load. Giggity. But maybe the coolers on your Perseus need like 3 minutes before you can turn the power plant on.
Yeah,
God forbid your whole D that's
waiting
games,
as long as it's engaging during the waiting game, though. Like, so if it's a matter of like, okay, you've got a 3-minute timer, or maybe we probably dial it down.
I was just really exaggerating the difference between the sizes, but yeah.
No, but you bring up a good point. I mean, like, what would be engaging still for an engineer at that point is like, maybe it's a timer of a band, and it's like, it's the old school Gears of War reload sequence where you had 2 bands, and if you got it in one band, you'd have like a decent timed reload, and if you got it within a really short period of time, like you'd have like a badass reload, and like the next 6 rounds out of the mag would do more damage. It'd be nice if it was like
if you like go to start it and there's some sort of mini game or some shit that you're talking about.
Yeah, I think it'd be that simple. I'd love that, actually. Be like, ooh, I timed that just right. And not only that, but that's a feel game too. Like, when it's for different weapons and you're consistently using that weapon, even back in the old Gears of War, it was like, oh, I get that timing on the reload down the more I use that weapon. Then you switch to the shotgun, it's like, the timing's all different. It'll take a little bit to get used to that.
That would
talk about mastery.
You were talking about earlier.
That would lean into the mastery of the given ship. When you're consistently the engineer of a hammerhead and stuff like that, and you're like, dude, I got this timing down, and stuff. You've made yourself that much more marketable. It's like, okay,
not only learning the ship, but learning the components on the ship. So like, if you know that ship has, whatever component X, and then your pilot didn't tell you that they changed it to component Y, and you miss your timing band, then that makes you pissed off at the pilot or the owner of the ship or whoever that like. So that kind of, I would love that level of granularity for engineering play.
Yeah, and it's easy to gamify.
Valuable.
Yeah, it's easy to gamify because if you think about it like that, it's just like what we do for mining. The difficult rocks. Your difficult rock, it could be the same thing in essence as your capital size military grade A component, and you've got a window this big during when your cooler is getting going in order to hit the button on the power plant in order to get them really in sync, in order to get whatever that benefit is. And if you don't hit it, if you're not paying attention, then you don't get the benefit. You can just press the button and then you miss it and it's no big deal. It'll still start and you miss it by a second or two, but you just don't get the benefit. Same thing with the shutdown, inverse. But it's just a UI thing. You don't have to. I don't think we need to get to the point where, okay, I need one person over there at the power plant and the other person over here at the cooler, and I need you to flip this switch. No, that's dumb. Do it from the console. But that's something that you can easily gamify with UI that gives you rewards, that makes it engaging. And like you were saying, if it is a capital class component, it takes longer. Okay, well, I've got the capital class coolers starting. and they've got a timer on them. It's got about 2 minutes. Okay, sweet. I can run over here and get this done and come back, in order to be more efficient.
Right, you can prep your power plant or something, yeah.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, I don't feel like maybe your Gladius you can get out, especially fighters of sorts, because you want those to be fast startup response, right? But, and there's also, like we used to do with, like, deployed, you stage it so that it's a shorter startup, a much shorter startup.
An abbreviated.
You get in, flip a few
sequence.
things. Yeah, it's a really abbreviated sequence, and you're off and going. Now you could do that with your fighters that are staged on, right, carriers or wherever. But your fighters should be a quick startup. You want them to be quick. I shouldn't be able to hop in an 890 and press one button and I'm flying away, man. That seems silly to me. I'm starting up a crazy huge spacecraft with one button and peacing out.
And for realistic comparison, we have a designated underway day, where we literally throw lines off the ship and move away from the pier. I typically come in either the night before or the day before to start up the reactor.
Oh my gosh!
I mean, that's what it takes to get the reactor started up, the electric plant up, and if it's been shut down for longer, it's even more time.
Yeah, imagine.
It's one thing when I've only been in port like 2 or 3 days. It's another when it's like, okay, it's been like 8 months. Like that is now there's a whole bunch of other stuff that goes into it because it's been what we call like a long-term shutdown. So, and honestly, like big like yachts, cruise ships, stuff like that, it's similar things. It's like engineering has to come in well before it's time to cast off lines and get underway.
I was just
to make sure.
I was just gonna like make a naval comparison. I'm not in the Navy, but it probably takes a hell of a lot longer to get an aircraft carrier underway than a cruiser.
Oh, for sure.
I can totally imagine size equals time, and it should be that way in game as well, I believe. Now, again, you got to balance realism with fun.
And that you bring up a good point though, because if that's what real life is like now, and that gives you good suspension of disbelief. We've had 900 years of advancements, and we're also playing a game. So it can take you a few minutes to get your capital class ship going, but like you're talking about, Sgt Tickles, having the expectation that you're not going to be able to get off the ground quickly, and so that feeds into your decision making on the back end. Okay, do I shut down or do I leave it running? If I'm worried about the startup and getting my shields back up, and you're in your 890, God forbid you've parked your space yacht on Pyro 3, and turned everything off. Okay, that feeds into your decision making, and that's you as an individual and the people you're working with, making risk benefit decisions. And that's good gameplay, even if the startup sequence is a couple minutes. It's okay. Well, that's something you have to take into account.
There's a reason you have a crew as well. The crew would stay with the ship if you're going to go do an exploration or whatever on the ground. The crew stays with the ship; it keeps it on.
I wish I could play that clip from Indiana Jones. Start up the plane! Start the plane!
I mean, anything like that. Big ship is going to take a big crew. I've always said from the beginning, since I think it was the damn whatever it was, the first big ship, the MISC refueler. I'm brain farting.
Starfare.
Yeah, Starfare. One person should not be able to fly that ship. Maybe one person should be able to fly it once it's going or whatever, but it shouldn't. It should take multiple people and multiple stations to make a Starfarer go.
Yeah. I don't
either that or it takes you 20 fucking minutes to get it out of the station.
Yeah.
That's actually a good segue to our last question for the resource management side of the house. But before I ask it, I want to ask you guys, because I don't want to assume, but I think it'd be kind of fun. We've had 2 questions come up in chat. Are you guys pressed for time this evening? Do you mind doing a couple Q&A questions at the end?
I'm good.
I don't mind.
Cool. So I'll save those. If you have questions in chat, I think we'll take 3 more. We already have 2. But if you have questions in chat, do me a favor and use the crayons at the bottom of chat, and you can highlight your message if you have a question. And you can go ahead and send that on. That makes it so I can see it more easily, and I'll copy it onto our document. And we'll go through those after we get through the components and subcomponents portion. And before I do, I've had like a bunch of follows since we got started, so I really appreciate everybody who is new to the channel, new to the podcast, and for throwing me a follow. I am going to plug myself on YouTube. So do me a favor, if you don't mind, I would really appreciate a subscribe on YouTube. I'm really trying to get over to that 1K mark, so that way I start getting ad revenue, because that ad revenue will go to stackup.org. So
didn't they relax it to 500?
So they relaxed the partner rules to 500, but you don't get ad revenue until 1,000. So I can do memberships and super chats and all that stuff. But yeah, so yeah. Selfish plug.
Some tricksy marketing on their part.
Yeah, that's how they get you. But you were talking about Sgt Tickles about you should have multiple people in order to get these things running. Otherwise you're running around like a chicken with your head cut off doing the 3 jobs by yourself. It will take a whole lot longer. And God forbid you're trying to get away. Versus trying to just leave the station in a timely manner. So we'll start with you, Sgt Tickles. Are you interested in engineering gameplay, as being the engineer, as well as doing your own ship or vehicle maintenance? Like, are you the kind of space dad who changes the oil and does your own brakes on your car, or do you see yourself outsourcing it to players or NPCs once that becomes a thing?
If it's interesting, I'm down to do it. If it's tedious, and if I find it tedious and boring, no, I'm good. I'll pass it on to someone who maybe enjoys doing it.
Now, does that change based off of what you're doing?
I think it changes based off of ships. A small 1-2 person ship, a freelancer, or that medium, small size Cutlass type thing. Yeah, I might do my own stuff. Maintaining my hull E, probably not.
Yeah,
So I think it really comes down to ship size.
So like if it's a big ship and you're wanting to captain the ship, you're thinking you want to outsource it. But if you're not necessarily captaining it, it's smaller multi-crew or just a single person, you're thinking you want to do your own maintenance.
Yeah, I mean, again, if it's fun, sure. If it's interesting and engaging, yeah, I'm down to do it.
I see that as one of those things where, if you don't want to do it, if you're not interested in it, you're doing the resource management, engineering, gameplay, all that tuning stuff is optional. You just won't get the benefits from it. You'll be at stock, and when you're at a station, you can pay the grease monkeys in the hangar to, replace this component, replace that component, do whatever. You just have to pay for it versus doing it yourself. And so that's one thing I always find interesting, because that's a real life parallel for everybody. Like, I don't know jack about my truck. I have, that, and it's a new truck, and those things are super complicated. I don't do anything on a truck my own. But when it comes to, I'm clinical, so I don't ask a doctor for hardly anything. I can do it my damn self. And I'm decent with computers. I built my desktop right over there, the whole streaming setup. I don't ask for help. I don't have anyone come out and do any of this stuff. I want to do it myself. But when it comes to my truck, I think of it as that way. The truck is beyond my scope, my abilities.
Right.
It's too much for me. It's not something I'm interested in, versus I find the computers or I find medicine interesting. It's within my purview.
Yeah, and that's 100%. I also think that you shouldn't be able to fly anything bigger than maybe a freelancer or that size solo, because I don't think that all the engineering options should be available to the pilot. Yeah. I don't think that the shields or the power triangle or any of that should be available to the pilot. You should need other people, engineers and such, to fly bigger ships. And that would kind of, I don't want to say force. I hate for it to force people to do stuff that they don't want to do, or to maybe play multiplayer. But I'm sorry if you sign up to fly a big ship, you signed up for playing multiplayer. So I think that would
base
force
take. Base take.
It would.
It's either multiplayer or you sign up for multi-crew.
Yeah. Either that or you have to hire NPCs. If you don't want to play with other people, hire NPCs.
NPC crew is a myth tree.
Yeah.
But you shouldn't. You shouldn't be
but that's
able to
the thing.
have access to all the engineering options as a pilot on a larger ship. I think that's kind of silly.
I think I get what you're saying. You shouldn't have everything right here at your fingertips as the pilot. You know, your
pilot
engineering
is a pilot.
console
You fly
is
the
back
thing.
there. You know, if you remember on the Hammerhead, which is like the sort of the model for big ships, the engineering console is back in front of engineering. It's not up here in the cockpit. And so you could
ride at the back of the bus.
And if you're
so same way in the submarine, I'm at the back.
You can get out of the pilot's seat and you can run back there and do something, but no one's driving. And so if you're, if you're just cruising along, that's one thing. But I agree. I don't think it should be.
If you have a big ship, you've signed up for multiplayer.
Yeah. And even you people are like, it's a space game. We should be able to do it like this in the future. Like Star Trek even did that. Scotty was down in the bowels of the ship. He was not hanging out on the bridge. Him and his whole team.
Find me the sci-fi universe where one guy does it all.
Even in Star Wars with the Millennium Falcon, he still has to run back. Chewie has to take controls, and he's got to run back and fuck with stuff. It's like, and that's a relatively quote small ship.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you never even saw the reactor guys on like a Star Destroyer, but they were there.
Exactly.
They were there. They're down there. I always felt
and they all died. They all died.
Yeah, those guys were just collecting a paycheck, man. Trying to feed their kids. Sorry.
But yeah, no. Night Cobb, same question. Are you interested in engineering gameplay, or are you just burnt out on being an engineer IRL? Do you see yourself outsourcing it? Do you want to instead be the pilot? Or do you actually think you're going to engage in this gameplay? Is this something you're looking forward to doing yourself?
No, I got zero interest. I've got a day job for that. No, but I mean, I want it to be engaging. Here's the thing: I know people that have talked to me in like Discords and about Star Citizen and stuff like that, and some of them are like, they spend a lot of time on Urkel. They're the min-maxers, right? They're always looking to like squeeze the utmost performance out of whatever fighter they've bought or whatever ship they've bought. And, I want them to have what is obviously engaging gameplay for them, where it's like, they've got choice and it matters, and it's going to depend on the situation that you're in, the environment that you're in for a ship. And I want that to matter for them because I want to hire them. I want there to be player-driven value behind, skill sets, player skill sets. And I think that's the best part about this game for the most part, because it's not like Eve where, you bring value because you trained, warp drive skill to level 20, over the course of like 4 years. I want somebody that's good and knowledgeable about my ship that I own, that I can hire, create a beacon for, an engineering. I need an engineer beacon or whatever so I can rate them. And, take them out with me into the black and count on them, and, develop a little bit of a relationship in a way of, hey, if I need an engineer again, are you going to be available? Well, I'll put you on retainer, a new money sink for me,
Yeah.
And I love stuff like that. And I want stuff like that because I want it myself, but in a different aspect of the game. But I want other people that want to have that style of gameplay to have that. I have no desire, but I want to be the combat pilot or a gunner. I don't get to do that. I don't get to do that shit in real life. I want my fantasy. Yeah. I don't want to do the stuff that I do at work.
I would say that really the only ship that I want to do my own maintenance on would be my Valkyrie, just because my Valkyrie, like that's my baby. Oh, holy crap, we just got raided by Soul Citizens with a party of 54. Hey-o. My goodness.
Hey.
Soul Citizens, thank you so much for the raid.
Part of the crew.
Whoa, holy moly. The sound alert is going to go nuts.
Part of the crew, party man. Part of the crew.
Really enough, we can't hear it.
Oh.
Yep. So
part of the crew.
Is it not coming after
we're in
the
a Discord call? I'm not listening to
your
Twitch.
Yeah,
part
no.
of the ship. Part of the crew, party
You
man.
guys sound bite them away. I don't care if you can hear us. We'll talk about something military for a hot second while you guys get it out.
Part of the crew, part of the ship. Part of the crew,
Tickles,
part
tell me
of
your
the
favorite,
man.
so,
Part
yeah,
of the crew,
tell me your
part of
favorite Blackhawk story, or I'm sorry, Pavehawk for the Pavehawk, yeah, Pavehawk
part of
story.
the ship. Part of the crew, steady man. Part of the crew, part of the ship.
Or maybe your funniest one. You got a funny one?
I've got a couple funny ones. I threatened to
part of the ship.
smack the
crew,
co-pilot with a crash axe once. Because the crash axe is on my
axe.
gunner's console. Yeah, there's an
Nice.
axe with a pointy end and an axe end to smash out of not much. I mean, the thing's pretty much open. But anyways, we were doing high maneuvering characteristics and capabilities, blah, 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 with weapon school. So those were, this guy was trying to get his weapon school patch and, think Top Gun, but Air Force.
Yeah.
And so he's trying to be the best of the best and max maneuver this aircraft, right? We're doing low G sims. So that's where you pop, and then at the top, you kind of bring the nose down and really just you're low G. Pilot's like, all right, don't take the instructor pilot says, don't take it too hardcore, right? Let's no need, not necessary.
Let's ease into
basic
this.
ass exercise. So we're doing it, and this motherfucker pops, right? And all of a sudden he just shoots the nose down, and I come up, and I fucking come down and just whammo, right on my nuts, landed on my nuts. And I was pilot gunner, go ahead, gunner. I said, if you do that again, I'm putting this fucking crash axe through your goddamn helmet. I just landed on my nuts, and which, if you know what the seat of a Blackhawk is, or any of those, it's some cloth draped over a fucking metal bar.
Yeah.
And
Not
I came
really
back
for
down
comfort.
full force on that bar. And I explained to him what he did. He's like, yeah, sorry about that one. I owe you a beer. Yeah, that was.
I like that. I like that.
Definitely not my favorite maneuver. No,
I love it usually.
I am.
But I went up, smacked my fucking head off the roof, and then came down and landed on my nut. It was the left
I
one,
like
if anyone was
my-
curious.
I like my either straight level flying, although Nap of the Earth is pretty dang fun, especially around the mountains. I do enjoy that. So everybody who just came in from the raid from Soul Citizens, thank you so much for joining us. Hope you guys had a good stream over there. I didn't catch what you guys were talking about this evening, but we are talking about resource management, engineering, gameplay, components, and subcomponents, just because that's a big part of what CIG has been developing recently, and well, actually for a while now, but there's been a lot of emphasis over it, so we're just talking about that sort of stuff.
4
with
years,
Nightcom.
4 or 5, 3 years is recently.
It actually goes back farther than that, but very, the with the engineering thing in March, that they're, it's one thing just to have little tidbits in the monthly reports, but it's CitizenCon and thus, going forward, it's getting pretty interesting, and I think we're going to see it probably in the next year or two, or at least start seeing parts of it. So, or it could be sooner. We don't know. But if you are unfamiliar with the stream and this podcast in particular, Night Cobb is a U.S. Navy engineer on a nuclear submarine, and then Sgt Tickles is a U.S. Air Force veteran door gunner on a HH-60 Pavehawk, right? Pavehawk.
Pavehawk.
And you Pavehawk did missions with the PJs, right?
Yep.
Cool. And then I'm Trio 311, former Infantry Marine and current Army National Guard flight paramedic on UH-60 Blackhawks. So what we do on this podcast in particular is we talk about different topics, and we sort of throw a little bit of our prior and or current military experience for reference, just so you can hear what we're thinking about in relation to these things, because there are a lot of interesting parallels that people might not think about. Soul Citizens, guys, I think I don't know who is on the stream this evening, because I know you guys have a variety of hosts. I think some or all of you are going to CitizenCon in October, so I will see you there. Really hoping I can meet you guys in person. I met Fastcart at CitizenCon 2948. We had ribs. And so looking forward to wishing him a happy birthday. So thanks again so much for the raid. Thank you so much for all the follows. Really appreciate the support. You guys are awesome. Yeah, thank you, North End Trooper, for shouting them out. Appreciate doing that. So if you don't already follow Soul Citizens, they do a really great show, really good content, and just genuinely super awesome people. And if anyone in chat is going to CitizenCon, why don't you sound off in chat? Let us know. So not only am I going to be there, but I am going to have a Trio through 11 shirt made so that way I'm easily recognizable. But I'm also going to make some PVC patches, morale patches. If you're
just
not
do
aware
a
of
crayon
those,
in your mouth.
Yeah,
a crayon in your mouth, like
Yeah,
you're
like a
smoking
cigarette.
Yeah.
But I
don't
could
need a
put it
shirt.
at the end of one of those smoking sticks, so it could be a fancy.
Yeah, crayon
fancy
is
person.
much cheaper. You don't need to have a special T-shirt made.
But so what I'm when I do relic hunts in my Valkyrie, my Valkyrie has the nickname of being the Vomit Comet, and so I had a sort of like a nose art image done for that, and so I'm going to have PVC patches made with that. So if you see me at CitizenCon, I'm going to have 20 of them made. So the first 20 people to come up and say, hey, and we can get a picture, share it for the social medias and stuff, I'll give you one of my patches that I'm having made. That's
Wait, are they
gonna be
Velcro on the back?
thing. Yeah, Velcro. The PVC, the sort of rubber.
Bro,
rubberish
you better
ones.
send me one of those.
Oh yeah, no, well,
I can't go to CitizenCon this year. I'm gonna be underway. Probably.
I'm making a bunch to have as like giveaways, but I'm also going to bring a bunch with me to for CitizenCon. But yeah, it's like rubber like this,
Exclusive.
and
Send
then
me one.
Velcro on the back.
I do this podcast with you.
Yeah, no, all the Pathfinders co-hosts and Armchair Admirals and Generals co-hosts will get one, as well as my mods for my Discord and Twitch. And then I'm bringing I think I'm probably going to bring about 24 or so to CitizenCon with me, just to sort of have a giveaway, get people to come up and say hey, take pictures and stuff. So yeah, make sure if you're going to CitizenCon, come up and say hi, hey, would love to meet everybody, and talk about Star Citizen. Yeah, I do this podcast, I demand merchandise. Yes.
Well, so the thing is, like, I know I'm the Submariner, and the irony is I'm like of the 2 helicopter guys, and then you got the one nuke Submariner over here, and I wore the helicopter hat today. I feel.
Oh yeah, you
it
did.
It was an homage to you guys, and then
I did the helicopter right before the stream. Does that count?
You did the helicopter.
Yeah, that counts. Sorry,
I haven't.
Why do I feel like I've confused everybody?
Wait. Are we talking about the same thing? Helicopter.
Do I need to explain it? This is going on YouTube, no? It was supposed to just be a joke. We weren't supposed to get stuck on this. It's not.
Nah, it's okay.
Anyway, I'll bring it back around.
Think of an elephant.
Anyway, I got a flight jacket. I'm big into DCS and stuff like that, so I got myself a nerdy flight jacket, and I'm big about collecting patches for it. So that's why I want one.
Yep, I will definitely send you a patch. Don't worry, you'll get one.
Hey, I've got a flight jacket. I've probably thrown 10 away.
See, I love those things. I'm like a big flight jacket fan.
The aviation cold and wet weather gear that the Army gives me is just amazing, and I get it for free. And they throw the stuff at me. It's
Part
just
of the crew, part of the ship.
I need to figure out.
Part of the ship. Part of the crew, part of the ship. Part of the crew, part of the ship.
Need to figure
I
out
need
what.
to have a. I need to figure out a keybind.
You don't want
to
to say.
turn that
You don't
off.
want to say this on stream. I don't think you want to say what you're going to say on stream.
No, it's the sound alert. I just need to think of a keybind to turn it off, because otherwise, if like we get it raid, there's a whole bunch of.
Tree has to hear it.
what's
We do
going
not
on.
have to hear it. It's pretty nice. I actually like it. I get to see the alert on your screen. But I don't
Yeah,
have
it
to
like
deal with
pops
the
up
sound.
and
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
can turn it off so you can't see it, but I don't know how to easily
know.
turn it off so you can't hear it.
you can't easily do it. Can't.
Yeah. What I like is I do enjoy watching Tree's poor Marine brain short out every time a funny sound is made, though,
And
he
stroke.
loses his train of thought. Yeah, it's just like he'll come back to us.